Hello, everybody. Welcome back to It's All Light. I'm your host, Natalie Baugh. And today I'm so excited we get to have Autumn Hamilton on the podcast today.
Hello.
So I met Autumn actually, I think through Instagram. Somehow we just became friends and
Mutual friends.
yeah, mutual friends. I posted about running and we had tried to go running many times, but I feel like the one time it did happen was she came out and supported me on my ultra race and ran with me. So just super
Awesome.
awesome. And I got to know Autumn a little bit better. And then we've had conversations here and there. And what she lights up about is something that I think everyone can benefit from. So before we dive into that, let's get to know you a little bit. Where are you from? And if you could only watch one movie for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Great question. Okay. So I'm from a small town in Raymond, Washington, about 3,000 people, very, very
Wow.
small. Yeah, and so come from a big family, done the whole BYUI, BYU thing. I work as a psychiatric nurse practitioner now, an
Oh,
American Fork. I love, super passionate about helping people with their overall mental health and wellness. And let's see, a movie that I could watch and every day for the rest of my life.
mm-hmm.
The first one that comes to mind is super cliche, but The Princess Bride. I
Oh,
just
that's
love
a
that one.
good one.
I feel
It
like it has a
has
little bit of everything.
yeah, all the elements. It's funny, it's
Mhm.
romantic, it's a
Yes.
drama. Oh, that's such
Mm-hmm.
a good one.
Great story. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I should add that to my movies to watch. I love that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a little bit your career, a psychiatric nurse practitioner. Is there
Mm-hmm.
any speciality with that, or you do all sorts of psychiatric help?
Yeah, in general psychiatry, yeah. So I
Wow.
do a lot of therapy, medication management for
That's
mental health.
so cool. I love that. And I now have another billion questions for another podcast episode for
Yeah,
you.
I love it.
I'm like, I have all the problems. What do you want to help me with? Just kidding.
Yeah,
No,
it's all the journey.
that's cool. Did you always want to do this field or what's your journey there just briefly?
Yeah, so no, it wasn't something that I always planned on doing. I started out with nursing and
Oh, right.
did that for several years. And yeah, and I just kind of started to move in the direction of mental health. And I just started to see that there were more and more issues, right, with people experiencing mental health in combination with physical health. And it just kind
Mhm.
of became a passion for me to be able to give people some more tools to help improve their quality of life, right? And
Yeah.
have more joy in life because it's hard. There's a lot of
Yeah.
hard things. So,
So
yeah.
to become a nurse practitioner, that's a master's program, right?
Yeah.
Where did
Yes.
you go to school for that?
Yeah. So that was Maryville University.
Cool.
Right. hmm
Wow. And how long have you been doing this?
So let's see, over 2 years now, a little over
Okay.
2 years. Working on that.
And then before that, you were a nurse, like an
Mm,
RN. Okay.
Yes, no,
Cool.
yep.
Good for
In several
you.
different places there. So yeah.
Okay. It's fun. I don't know. I knew like bits and pieces of that, but it's fun to know more about that. You also said you're obsessed with Fairlife protein shakes. Okay.
Yeah.
What flavor?
Oh, chocolate. Chocolate
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Yeah, chocolate's great. And
Yeah.
this other fun fact I did know, Autumn loves to country swing dance and
Mhm.
getting outside, which you do both of those very well. Like
All
you're
the time.
always going outside and you're always dancing and she's quite a
Mhm.
dancer. It's pretty phenomenal to watch her dance cuz you have
Oh, thank you.
did you grow up dancing? Like you have the flair.
Yeah, I grew up doing ballet and jazz and
I'm
musical theater,
sure.
but
Wow. I'm
didn't
sure that
start really doing
helps.
it a lot. Yeah,
That's
it does. It
awesome.
does. It helps for the spins. So,
Cool.
mhm.
Well, that's great for us, a background board as we dive now deeper into what do you light up about, Autumn?
Yeah, so I know we kind of talked a little bit about this, but dating and relationships, it's really something that I just feel like I could talk about all day, every day. A lot of my friends and family know that as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll
But
come to you too because I mean with your background and in
Mhm.
psychiatry, like you have tools that could very well
Yes.
help relationships and dating. So this will be really
Mhm.
fun.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you love hearing people's success stories and supporting loving relationships and learning how to navigate and develop meaningful loving relationships. So off the bat, who's someone or a couple you think of that has like a supporting loving relationship that you think is a good example?
Oh, that's a great question. I've had some really great examples. My parents, I have a couple married siblings, and a few of my very best friends. Like, I just find that their relationships are really inspiring, right? I've seen some great examples of real teamwork in relationships where it just seems like they're both really working together to, it's not so much about who does what type of thing, but really creating the relationship dynamic that works for each. It's unique, right? Each relationship, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like finding rhythm that works for them. Hmm.
So do you feel like you love to watch and observe that just because I don't know, me and my friends always said like it is a miracle when two people decide to get married and find each other and make it work with whatever they have. Or I don't know, sometimes
Hmm.
it looks so easy to us, but what about it lights you up, so to speak?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about this, but kind of talking about Matthew Hussey,
Yes.
something that I really like that he says is that good relationships aren't found, they're built, which I think is just so awesome, right? Because I think oftentimes in society and culture, it just feels like, oh, is there the perfect person out there, right, for you? Or there feels like a lot of pressure to just find someone that seems like they
So much
check all the,
pressure.
all the boxes.
Yeah.
Versus really finding someone that you're both choosing each other, and then from there creating something beautiful together, right? It's not so much about have to be so perfect, but that you have a similar vision and compatibility and willingness, right, to work at it together. So I think
Yeah.
that's the part that I get excited about, is that when I see people find that they're choosing each other, and then what they're able to create from that.
I like that. How important do you feel like compatibility is? Like, if you were to put compatibility and like the choice side by side, like, do you need one more than the other? Like, what if some people maybe aren't as compatible, but like have that willingness to make it work? Do you think it just makes it harder? Does
Hmm.
that make sense?
That that is a good question. Yeah, because I've definitely heard a lot of people talking about, right? It's not so much that you are exactly the same on everything, right? That you necessarily have to have all of the same hobbies or interests
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
extrovert, like that type of energy. But to me, it's more so about how do you work together, right? Where's the communication? Where is there still the coming together where you have that strong relationship, right? Even when there's differences. But I think there definitely is a point where that compatibility is really important if it's going to be a source of a lot of pain and resentment in the long run, right? If there's not really that able to really come to an agreement on some of those differences.
Yeah. Just, yeah. Sorry. There's a lot running through my head with that. But yeah, I think it's helpful to, like you said at the beginning, like every relationship is so unique and it's just figuring out like what works for you. So, what helps
Mhm.
people recognize what works for them? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, that is a good question. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice for a second.
You're good.
um, you know, I don't know that I have a perfect answer for that, but I do think it comes from even being willing to try, right? First,
Mm-hmm.
trying, finding someone that you feel like there's the chemistry, there's the attraction, there's that initial admiration, right, for different qualities or things that draws you to a person. And then if you get to that point where you want to try out that relationship, to see, are you able to, is someone bringing out the best parts of you, right? Rather than, I think sometimes if it's more of the insecurities, more of the issues, more of that anxiety, someone that tends to bring out the best in you, I think that tends to be a good indicator of a relationship that's moving in a good direction.
I like that. So I want to let you kind of take the reins a little bit now and maybe go into a little bit of the background, diving into developing meaningful, loving relationships. Matthew Hussey, I asked a poll on my Instagram if people know who he is. He's a dating and relationship kind of coach and advice, New York Times bestselling author guy. And you got
Yes.
to go to his retreat, right? Which we'll
Yes.
dive
Oh,
into.
yes. That was a dream come true. Yeah.
But yeah, you said the past 6 years you've been following him, and I kind of want to hear your story of that journey.
Yes, yeah. So I know I touched on a few different things there, but yeah, about 6 years ago, I went through really major heartbreak. I had a broken engagement, and it was really devastating, right, to me. I'm the type of person, marriage, family has always been a very, very high priority and something that's really an important value to me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, about 6 years ago, that didn't work out. And I just found myself like struggling to be like, hey, how do I go about this dating? How do I heal from heartbreak? And that's when I kind of stumbled upon some of Matthew Hussey's YouTube videos, which I highly recommend. They're awesome. And he's been doing this for 15 years now. And that's kind of where I started was YouTube, following him there, and just found that he had some really great insights into how to really fall in love with your life, to find and attract the love of your life, tips for dating, how to build confidence, how to, really heal from heartbreak, like so many things that I just found to be so valuable over the last few years.
Wow. Yeah. I think if anybody's listening, at least everyone I know has gone through heartbreak once or twice or more, and
Yeah.
or even if it's not heartbreak on a specific person, but just like the depression of dating, like just how hard it
A
is,
burnout.
how it's not working. And I don't know, I've had multiple friends just express their frustrations to me, just how hard it is. And it really is so hard and a big trial for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
what would you say his approach to dating and love is? Like you were saying, just kind of like learning how to love your life. Let's expand on that.
Mhm. Yeah, so one of the things that he actually brought up in his retreat, and that's an idea that I heard him talk about before, but that I really love, is this idea of being happy enough. Because he basically says a lot of people will sometimes be like, oh, you need to be your best, most happy, complete self before you find the one, right? And he's like, don't agree with that. And I also agree with that, right? Because I think there's a lot, right, that you're not going to be perfectly happy single necessarily, right? But he does believe you can be happy enough to where you're doing the things that you love, you're creating the life that is meaningful to you, so that you're able to say no to the wrong relationships or to the wrong things in your life that aren't maybe really right for you or good for your life, as well as able to really enjoy those experiences or possible relationships, give it that time to develop without that anxiety of kind of more the scarcity mindset of like, oh, if this doesn't work out, then what, right? Kind of more of
Yeah.
that abundance mindset.
Hmm.
But that half idea has been really, really helpful to me, just to be able to find like, yeah, like I can have a lot of joy in my life while still knowing there's this piece that's still very important, that would even add more, right, to the
Yeah.
happiness, but also not be so much in that place of deficit too.
And from the other side, do you think like being happy enough in a relationship is something to look for too? I think it I think it's a hard thing to figure out, like I don't know if people are being too picky or not, or at like what point do relationships work or don't work based off of like people don't want to settle. There's the word I'm looking for, but like, oh, but if you're happy enough, and if you found someone, then I don't know. I feel like it's hard. I like look at Vineyard and the dating world, and I'm just like, okay, like, what are we like waiting for? Like, are we waiting to be like happy enough? But like every relationship will have its hardships. So it's like hard to
Mhm.
know. I think people just have a hard time knowing, or maybe they're expecting it to just add to their happiness like tenfold when maybe that's not reality. Okay, sorry, go ahead. Your turn.
No, I love this though. I actually am like, yes, yes, yes. I totally agree. But
Good.
lot to this, right? And obviously, there's a lot of different answers to kind of what's going on. But I think something that I've noticed is it can go back to a little bit of perfectionism, right? Sometimes that I think
Mm,
out to where that's more so this never enough mindset, right? Where it's like nothing's ever good enough, right? You always need more. You always like you're never satisfied, right? Or nothing ever feels like it's good enough, right? So that can kind of cause maybe more of that comparison or more of that feeling like, oh, this is maybe good, but what if this, right? Or kind of more like that. We sometimes, I think, look at dating more so as like buying a product that you're trying to maximize all of the pros and cons or all the qualities versus really seeing this person and what you can create with that person, right? In a relationship,
mm-hmm.
you know, isn't so much about being so, again, the list of checks and checkbox list and everything, but more so about, what are those things that are most important for you to be happy and okay in a good relationship, right?
Yeah, I think it is helpful. Back on I forgot which episode, but if you look up the one about football with Moose Bingham, there's an episode that he was like, if you don't know what you're looking for, how are you going to find it? So he kind of did
Mm,
go back to like, okay, what are your like top 10 like deal or no deal things, right? Because
yeah.
then when you're in it, making hard decisions, then you can really kind of make it black and white. But like you said,
Yeah.
like it is gray because they are a person, and no matter what, it's uncertain. So it's like
Mhm.
you have to find peace in uncertainty, but you also have to, I mean, take into consideration what makes you happy and are your needs being fulfilled.
Yes.
So,
Hmm.
what helps you figure out? Well, I also love that at the beginning we touched on just like a loving, supporting relationship, and that's like just two people who are willing to navigate through it, and
Hmm.
like know what they want in a sense. So,
Yeah.
what helps build that confidence in yourself as well as, I guess, in a sense, preparing to meet someone? Or what do you have to say about that?
Hi. And this is kind of then, yeah, more about the confidence that you build up as in your single life, right? To be able
Mm-hmm.
to there again, I think it goes back to knowing how to say no to the wrong things faster and be able to you know, say yes to the things that are good or give something more of a chance, right? That
Yeah.
could possibly blossom into something. And I think a lot of it is too, right, just going out there and experiencing it, right? Like actually dating, meeting people, but also to really identifying those things that, and I love the word that you use, lights you up, right? Like the things that gets you excited about your life. There's a lot of confidence that comes from that, right? When you feel like there's parts of your life that do feel really good, that do feel exciting, that there's that growth that's happening. And so then that is something that is within your control, right?
Mm-hmm.
Find the person at the right time, the person that is a good match, right? That's a little bit harder to control, but your own personal growth, meeting people, being open to opportunities, and being able to say no if there are things that are not leading in a good direction, right? Faster. I think those are things that can help with
Yeah.
that confidence.
I want to change the stigma of the older you get, the harder it is to find someone and date. Like my mom's like, you just get more and more stubborn the older you get. And I'm like, okay, yeah, well, like maybe that is true. But at the same time, we
Yeah.
also, I think, are quicker to realize what makes us happy and what doesn't. Because
Mhm.
as you were talking, I was thinking, well, like, yeah, if you know what makes you happy, then as you find people, like, do they add to that happiness or take it away? And then you can
Mhm.
just add and grow that together. I had another thought too, and hopefully it'll come back. But yeah, I just love that it's an adding thing. Oh, the other thought was in relation to Cole's episode last week. He talked about Tony Robbins talking about energy and the
Oh,
example of like a high two people with high energy toward life and passion and finding what makes them happy, like, and have the same amount of love as other people with less energy, like their relationship will be maximized and better. So it is trying to, you have to find someone, I think, that balances you, but that also adds to you.
yes, yes, yeah, and I like that too. Matthew Hussey brings up energy as well,
Oh
right? That
yeah,
it's
let's
not
hear.
about getting the person right or finding the right match, but it's like, really, what type of person do you want to be as an individual? What type of energy do you want to bring to the world, right? What type of person do you want to be? And that can also be a good source of confidence too, right? Because like you mentioned a little bit of the dating burnout, right? That can happen if you feel like you're just trying to get the guy, right? Or trying to do these different things to mold into what may or may not really be consistent with who you're wanting to be.
Mm.
And so that can help with confidence too. Just really identifying who do you want to be and how do you want to be, make a difference in the world, right?
Oh, I like that. I've been thinking a lot about purpose. It's like, kind of, what's your life purpose? And like,
Uh,
in relation to what makes you happy, and then just trying to fill your life with those things. I kind of want to break down kind of your retreat experience, but before I do that, one last question. What would you say to those who feel like just depressed in dating, or
mhm.
who are just hurting?
Well, first off, I'd be like, you're not alone, right? Like, dating is not for the faint of heart at all. Like, it definitely is something that is not easy, right? It's hard, and especially now, I feel like it's more complicated than it's really ever been, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's things that are so challenging. We have kind of this idea that there's always something more out there. There's dating apps, there's social media, right? Like, there's a lot of things. And like you mentioned, people have gone through really hard things, traumatic experiences. All of that is challenging, right? To want to keep showing up, keep dating. And so I think really the biggest thing is to first be kind to yourself, right? Recognize that what you're doing is not an easy thing, but then also to see if there's some ways to try and get dating to be fun again,
Mm.
right? Like whether it is, sometimes it might be even just taking a break for a little bit to just refocus your life, reprioritize things, but then also too, is it, the type of dating apps can be a great option, but is it doing a new class, trying something new,
Mm.
smiling more in places that you're going, even if it's the grocery store, the gym, things like
Yeah.
that. It's amazing sometimes the differences that can happen as a result of just small changes,
Hmm.
small. And also something else that I really like is saying yes to invites that you wouldn't normally say yes to. I feel like a lot of us sometimes have different opportunities that come up that might seem a little bit uncomfortable, but being willing to kind of go out of your comfort zone, I think that can be helpful too.
Yeah. Those are all sound advice. Thank you.
Mm.
Okay, so now before we dive into some other elaborations of your passions, tell us about this retreat. You can share as much or as little as you'd like. It's
Yeah.
just kind of interesting to know that like there are just so many resources, and like on Instagram, his posts and stuff like that, and then even this retreat and kind of what led you to do it, if that's not too
Yeah,
personal.
yeah. Well, like I said, I've been following him for about 6 years, and it's just been very helpful for a lot of different chapters in dating. But this year, I actually turned 30, which feels like an LDS culture for some reason. It's like, okay, now what? But I was like, I had the opportunity, saw that his retreat was coming up in person in Florida. I was like, okay, I'm single and I'm 30. I'm going for it. Like that, but loved following all of his content
Fun.
and everything, and getting to meet him in person was just incredible. It was so much fun. Like he
That's
really,
cool.
I feel like, is so genuine and truly who he is. Like as you see him on his videos and podcasts and things like that, like he really cares about people, which I love. I love that. And
Cool.
yeah, so then getting to be there, like I mentioned, the happy enough was a really big thing that he talked about. But something else too, he actually gave us little bracelets that said, create or wait. And I love that so much, right? Because I think
Hmm.
there's also kind of this, whether it's society or in movies and books, right? It's kind of this idea that you're just, waiting for Prince Charming to show up, right? Or it's just like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
just like that magical encounter, some, store, and all of a sudden, you find the love of your life, right? He's like, yeah, you can either keep waiting for things to happen in your life, or his idea is that you can create magic in your life. right? You can create opportunities, you can meet new people, you can do new things, you can grow in new ways, right? You can create something that doesn't require just waiting for life to happen. And I love
Mm. Yeah, that is create or wait. I like that. Thank you.
that.
What else?
What else? So then, oh, another one I really like that he talked about is especially after heartbreak
Mm-hmm.
is, and actually his brother Steven brings this up too, but there's like kind of two different ways to go about recovering after heartbreak. And he compares it to an athlete recovery versus the hangover method. So basically, right, when an athlete gets injured, they have, whether it's their shoulder, their ankle, whatever it is that's injured, right, they're taking care of that, but they're
Mm-hmm.
not completely not still taking care of their nutrition, exercising other parts of their body, getting proper rest, having good support from friends and family.
Yeah.
But and in the end, they're, careful with that part that's injured, but they're strengthening themselves in other areas, right, as they're healing, versus the
Mm-hmm.
hangover method is kind of like, okay, now you start out with one painful issue, but then in the end you might end up having another five other
More
problems,
pain.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe things that are going to cause that pain to last longer in the long run.
Mm. So was it like you would sit in different like classes and lectures and get to know
Yeah.
people and
Mhm. Yeah, I love the breakout dance parties too. We would just like
sweet,
all
awesome.
start dancing at different times. But yeah, he really again went through more so about learning how to love your life, like really recognizing some of your patterns that have maybe caused more self-sabotage or
Mm-hmm.
choosing relationships that aren't great, right? And just really identifying sources of pain too. He really talked a lot about that
Hmm.
as a way to start to heal those things to create a better life, instead of talked a lot about how we have different stories that we tell
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, right? That
Oh
maybe,
yeah.
keep you from actually living the life you want to live.
Huh. That's interesting. When you talk about those pains, I'm sure that involves different triggers, like I've recovered from other relationships and heartbreak and it's the triggers are like real. Like I remember like in a few months after like a relationship ended like 4 years ago, it's like just so many little things trigger. And sometimes it's like the 2 a.m. where you just sob in your bed, it's like
Yeah.
you have to like rewire your brain, which I know is a very like a therapy term, but
Mhm.
what like tools did he give in doing that?
Yeah, so I really like how you mentioned, yeah, like some of the different triggers that can happen, right? Especially coming out of a relationship. You might struggle to go to a gas station or a favorite restaurant or, things like that
Mm-hmm.
because of all the memories that might be attached to that based off of that relationship. And he kind of gave a couple different, perspectives with that, depending on the situation. Maybe for a time you kind of remove yourself from some of
Mm.
those triggers while you give yourself time to heal. But another thing that he talked about, which I've found to be very helpful, is to find ways to create new memories with
Mm-hmm.
with that can have triggers, right?
I've heard
So
that
it's a
before.
restaurant that you've
Yeah.
had a lot of, yeah. It's like go with your best friends and go, do something extra special and fun that makes it again more meaningful and personal to you. And yeah, those first few times are going to be more painful at first, but it does get easier.
Yeah. You mentioned something at the beginning. I'm not sure exactly what you said, but something along, and this is kind of like other therapy, like talk or psychiatric talk. And it's kind of like this, like you said, the stories we tell ourselves as well as experiences in our lives. And like you said, recreating those memories as an experience. But some
Yes.
things you have to just like step away and look at it as just an experience, right? And like detach emotion. What are
Yes.
your thoughts in that realm of, I guess, more therapy style talk?
Yeah, that's an interesting part, right? Because I know people are like, oh, detached, like, oh no, I want emotion there, right? But again,
Mm-hmm.
it's the stories that we're telling ourselves that's making it so that there's so much emotion there that can make it difficult to move forward, right? Or to move past that.
Mm-hmm.
it does kind of take almost recognizing what is the story. And when I like to think about dating, right, sometimes it's like you just look at that alone and look at what is the story you've told yourself about dating, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, no good guys out there, or oh, I'm not enough, or I always date the wrong person, or whatever it is.
No one's
Everybody
making an
has their,
effort. Yeah.
yeah, no one's making an effort, whatever it is. Oh, there's no one, a scarcity mindset. There can be so
Yeah.
many different stories that we're telling ourselves based off of whatever the pain or that source of lack of fulfillment, right, might be there.
Mm.
And so just writing it out and then finding, how do you want to create a different story, right? Or how do you want
Mm-hmm.
to see that story differently?
Yeah. So what are some phrases maybe that you learned or that helps you live and create your best life? Like cuz I love that idea of like, yeah, I'm creating the life I want to live. Like I have every day to choose what I do, what I say, how like to an extent how I think, right? Because
Mhm. Yes.
your thoughts produce your feelings, so you have to just become self-aware. Like I don't know,
Mhm.
today I sat in my car with like no music and like on my run, no music. And I was just like, it's amazing what happens when you just sit and listen to your own thoughts, right? And then
Mhm.
like feeding these positive thoughts. What are some things you learned? Like, what are some of those phrases or things that help you?
Yeah, so something that was part of the retreat that was awesome was that there was, after our morning exercise outside on the beach, we
Oh,
do like some
nice.
yoga and some exercise, which that alone, right, was awesome having that routine. But then we also had a session for meditation and gratitude. And
Mm,
it was so awesome because I'm like, yeah, I've heard about meditation a lot. I had done it a few times before, but there was something about doing that consistently every day, having that as a set part of my routine, it just helped me to realize how much I had to be grateful for my different experiences, which also was helpful in kind of rewiring and rewriting that story, right? Rather than it being a tragic story or, whatever, it can be
yeah.
easy sometimes, right? Or tell yourself that story to be like, how is this something that can help me be more prepared for the next chapter, right? The next line that I'm writing in the story.
Oh, I like that. I think that kind of relates to just always asking yourself like, okay, what lessons am I learning? What like in any struggle, even if it's like a daily frustration at work, it's like, okay, what's the lesson? What's the
Yeah.
lesson here? Um,
Yeah.
you might love this book. It's a lot of the similar ideas you're talking about, and it's called Calling in the One.
Oh, I
And
haven't heard of that
it's
one.
7 weeks to attract the love of your life. So it's like the
Oh,
cheesiest of all titles. And
I like it.
my cousin my cousin got married at 32, and I remember just asking her like, as I approach my late 20s and approaching 30, like what I asked her like what helped her get through that and like finally find the one. And she's like, I had a roommate give me this book, and she's like, it was so helpful. But like you were saying, like these patterns and creating the life, like this book isn't so much as here's how you're gonna get your man. It's really putting in the work of like, okay,
Mhm.
let's think about these patterns. And it shares all these helpful stories and has like a homework assignment and a discussion. I think I only made it to like chapter 4. I should probably go dig that book up, just because
Yeah.
even if you're like in a relationship or whatever, wherever you are on your journey, it's helpful just to recognize these thoughts and feelings and just your outlook on life in general, and help
Yeah.
other relationships, not just romantic, right?
Mhm. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because
But
it's important for all of them, all the
but I
relationships.
do love that these principles are similar, because then it's like you start to hone in on like what's ringing true to you. Like, oh yeah, I do want to tap into meditation or gratitude, or like how can
Yes.
I create better stories and sign up for a new class? Like all these elements you're talking about, like they all just blend together when you have a broader perspective, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, what else is running through your mind right now?
I think just something else where we kind of were touched a little bit on like the dating burnout, right? And some of like
Mm.
the that can, be there. Like, I think, having someone to talk to, having support, knowing that you're not alone, I feel like it's very helpful. But also, something that just came to mind too is almost having, and we always hear about pre workout and post workout, some of those routines, right? Whether it's, the foods that you're eating or the music you're listening to right before the gym or the things that you do to recover after. I kind of do the same with dating. I kind of have a little
Oh,
bit pre-date routine, post-date routine, right? Depending on how the date goes. But
yeah.
I think, kind of getting into that confident mindset, being able to bring your best self to a date, right? Like it's hard. It does require a lot of energy and you want to be able to have that good energy when you're dating. But just think about, you have your hype song, you maybe have the way that your favorite outfit or the way you do those
Yeah.
things, is it a friend that you call up that's kind of your hype person too, right? Like I just think all of that can help it to be a more enjoyable experience as well.
I like all those elements. And I think with just so many things, like that's what we do for like job interviews or things we really want, right? It's just like, how are we treating it? Like
Mhm.
showing its importance. Those are great
Yeah.
ideas. Thanks, Autumn.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned just other things you light up about that you, I think, throughout your journey have experienced. Just, I guess this could give some ideas of how people can create the life. So, like you
Mhm.
mentioned, all the things you light up about, like exercise, moving, staying active. Like we could dive into some of those things that you have found in your journey. Just maybe give people some ideas if they are in a rut. You want to
Oh yeah.
just, what else do you light up about?
Yes, and I feel like a lot of those things are actually very much a part of my happy enough, right? Like when I think of
Hmm.
the things like that really make an ideal day for me, it's being outside, maybe hiking or doing something active. Dancing is another big one. For me, it sometimes is just when I get up in the morning and I'm getting ready for the day and I'm like, I don't know if I really am ready for today, but turn on some fun music and have a little solo dance party, right? Like
My
that
mind
to
goes
me
to
is,
Hilary Duff in the
yeah.
the Lizzie McGuire movie when she's
Oh,
just in the morning
I
getting ready
still
dancing.
I still listen to that song. The
Honestly,
Time is
like
High. Yeah.
sometimes you really can create your life to be like a movie. I don't know. My parents are like, you watch too many movies. You have unrealistic experiences for love, and we can talk about that in a minute too. But
Mhm.
okay,
Yes, yeah,
so
I am
yeah,
a little bit of, yeah, romantic that way. Yeah,
me too.
romanticizing your life. But
Yeah.
yeah, I
Okay,
feel
keep
like
going. What else helps?
yeah, what other things do I do? So yeah, music is huge for me. I just feel like music helps me get through so much in life. So yeah, and the dancing, doing something meaningful. Like my work is something that I'm very passionate about and I feel very fulfilled and it provides a lot of purpose for me. So that is also something that's a source of just feeling more joyful. And that's something though that it took years. Like that wasn't something that I found right away, right? So I feel for
Yeah,
all those that are maybe in that still trying to
it does take
find
time.
something that's fulfilling. Mm-hmm.
And I think there is the beauty of, sorry, this is a complete tangent of like there are so many options in our world right now, which sometimes is super hard because you're like, oh, what should I do, this or this or this. But it's also nice to know, like, if you get into a career or something, you're never stuck, right? And that's nice to know you can always pivot. Okay, keep going.
Yes. Yeah, and that kind of is just another thing that I feel like is very important to me and part of my happy enough is growth, right? Just
Mm.
what am I learning? What am I doing? How am I growing, right? Whether that's the books I'm reading, the podcasts I'm listening to, different classes or things that I'm taking, people that I'm meeting with, right? Like that to me is also a source of a lot of happiness, being able
Mm-hmm.
to learn and grow and progress and then social, right? Like my family, my friends, dating, like that is just such an important part to me, right? Like I
Yeah.
quickly feel it on a day if I've just been a little bit more isolated or haven't done as much, like had a meaningful conversation, like that automatically I feel like just ooh, starts to take the happiness, right? So I
Yeah.
feel like for me, those are some of those main sources of just feeling more in that happy enough place, right? Not
Yeah.
that every day is perfect, not that every day is great, but that a lot of times if those things happen, I feel like my cup's a little bit more full.
I like that. And then I feel like your true you shines brighter, cuz we
Mhm.
all have our special personalities. Like everyone is so uniquely different. That's why it really is a miracle when two unique different souls come together and
Mhm.
for our beliefs are together for eternity, which to me still
Yeah.
freaks me out and I need to work on my own personal issues, but
Yeah.
I don't
It's
know.
hard to comprehend. It really is sometimes very hard to fully
Yeah.
comprehend. I don't think
But
we fully comprehend.
But I
Mhm.
love like even versus like good day, bad day. It's just segmenting them into moments, right? Like, okay, you can have a bad moment. It doesn't make your whole day bad, and
Yeah.
like going to your list, like write the list of things that make you happy. I have like 3 pick me up playlists. They're all pretty outdated from like high school, but like it's the songs that can get you out of a funk. Like sometimes sleep is probably the best answer. Just go try to get some sleep. But
Mhm.
just I feel like going to I don't know, I used and maybe I still am notorious for like throwing pity parties for myself. When you feel like everything is just going wrong or it's like just all up in your head. So I love that, like talking it out with people. For me, going on a run, like you said, getting outside, but always like
Mhm.
trying to do at least one thing on the list when you're in those ruts and breaking up the flow. I listened to a podcast about that. It was like the 5 a.m. club, people who get up that early. Anyways,
Mhm.
sorry, I'm going on lots of little tangents here,
Oh,
but
I love it.
we can hone
Mhm.
it back into just the thing we talked about the most, love and relationships. And just it starts from when we're born, right? The love of our mom and our dad and siblings, like that's love in relationships. And I always find it interesting, like romantic relationships versus family relationships, because it's love, different kinds of love, but it's also
Mhm.
like this is a funny story. My parents might laugh that I'm sharing this, but like my mom's the oldest of 8, and one time I think her and my dad might have been engaged. She kind of was like yelling at her siblings or something because they're all were super young when she was getting married, and she kind of turned to my dad. And she's like, "Oh, Brent, don't worry, I'll never yell at you like that, And like my dad's like, "It's all a lie. She treats me exactly how she treated her siblings,
Yeah.
respectively." So,
Uh-huh.
what are your thoughts on that? Just back to the basics of love and relationships and treating others and our siblings versus those we date and what that
Yeah.
looks like.
Yeah. So what comes to mind is there's actually a book that I listened to recently that I love because it's all about love. It's called The 8 Rules of Love by Jay
Hmm.
Shetty. If you've heard of
I've
that
heard of
one at
Jay
all.
Shetty. Yeah.
Have you heard Jay Shetty? Yeah,
Yeah.
I highly recommend it. He wrote Think Like a Monk, but then also his
Yeah.
8 Rules of Love, which was
Cool.
it talks about romantic relationships, but it does also talk right about family relationships, friend relationships, and it really first starts out with your relationship with yourself, right?
Ooh.
Like very
Yeah.
much how do you learn to be okay when you're on your own, right? Or when you are alone, like how is your relationship? How do you enjoy that time, right? Like whether it's a new hobby or learning something, right? Like how do you treat yourself, right, in those moments? So I really like that it focuses on first that self relationship, but then also too, just putting out more love in the world, like wherever you go, right? I
Mm.
really like, and I think is awesome in the church. We talk a lot about that, right? Like the charity, pure love of Christ, like loving others so much, like regardless of who they are or what they've done, right? I just think that is something that we talk a lot about, but it's easier said than done, right? And I think, like, I just noticed,
Yeah.
right? It's so easy to quickly judge, or so easy to quickly complain, or to have issues with someone, or to criticize someone,
The
right? And so
natural
we
man
push you.
is
The people we
natural.
love, right? The people we love the
Yeah.
most, I think it's
Yeah.
sometimes really easy to do. So I just think that that is something that I'm working on, right? Is just trying to have more love for whoever I'm in contact with, right? Like just kind of having more that sense of you walk in a room and you're wanting the best for people, right? Rather than and hoping the best, thinking the best, right? not to say, yeah, we need to be aware. There's obviously things. I'm not saying don't be naive, but also
Hmm.
I think we really use a lot more love just in general with our relationships and people in our
Yeah.
lives.
I love that. I think so often it's so easy, like, especially with our families, to just kind of say the first thing in our heads because we know we're loved and accepted. But at the same time,
Mhm.
that doesn't allow, like, it doesn't, I guess allow is the right word. It doesn't allow you to throw mean comments, like President Nelson said
Mhm.
that, like, don't throw harsh words, like
Yes.
just what helps you pause in, I guess, moments of frustration, either for yourself too. Like, I know that if you do something, you're like, oh, dang it, I'm such an idiot, like, or
Right.
if someone bothers you, like, even just thinking thoughts about them, what helps you pause before you get there?
Yeah, that's a good question to pause before you get there. That sometimes is a little bit challenging and something that I've just at least been noticing personally recently is where yeah, like my work, I find I put all my best energy, right? I feel like I just try to show up, be really, understanding, thought, all these things that are really important. But I do find sometimes at the end of the day, I'm more drained, right? And then I'm with
Mm-hmm.
family, friends. I find that my patience isn't quite the same, right? Or I feel like I'm a little bit more depleted. And so that's where I find, yeah, it's easier to snap or be more angry or, not be as
Mm-hmm.
understanding.
Because your cup
So
is low.
yeah, because my cup is low. So at least for me, like just having that awareness and sometimes paying attention to okay, what are some things to maybe bring that cup back a little bit? Is it taking a little
Mm-hmm.
rest, relaxing, get some food? I'm a big believer in,
Get
make
some
sure you're
food.
eating and staying
Yeah.
hydrated, right? Like that you're not, some of those physiological needs are met. And then be willing to apologize too, right? I think that's
That's
a
so
lot of
big.
we can try to keep things more in balance, be able to recognize, that would be great to be able to be like, hey, you know what, I'm really not in the best place right now. Can we talk about this in a little bit, but sometimes that doesn't always happen, right? And you're in the moment, you snap, but if there can be more of that apology and recognition that, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not my best self right now, I think that is also something that can be helpful for relationships.
It really is amazing how far that humility and apologizing can go. Like, I don't know, sometimes for me, I'm not to the point where I can switch to that. Like, if I'm getting heated, usually I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just go for a walk. Like, let me just leave the
Yeah.
situation. Like,
Mhm.
if my
Take
mom
a
is
break.
bothering me, I'm like, Mom, I'm just gonna go
Mhm.
downstairs. I'll come back up when I'm ready to talk about it, when I'm more level headed and clear. But
Yeah.
at work, we have a culture meeting once a month, and I just pulled up my notes because it was similar to what we're talking about. And it was a TED talk called Don't Be So Defensive. And I think
Oh.
even in romantic relationships, it's just something we have to learn as people in a relationship, right? Just how to
Mhm.
navigate conflict in a sense, right? And like you said, like, grow more love and support for everyone in our lives and ourselves.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a
Yeah.
super great TED talk, and it's just like being vulnerable to the defensiveness. And he was saying usually you don't catch it until you're already in it, if you're like being defensive or frustrated, it's
Yeah.
like, so it's like, okay, yeah, you might get in it, but it's just like learning to catch it and then slow down and pay attention. So yeah, he gave those three things, and they're basically what you were just saying. So like, acknowledge that you're getting defensive, slow down your physicality, maybe breathe, go on a walk, and then
I'm a nervous.
pay attention to self-talk, like you were saying. And then 4 is create an action step that is collectively adding to the defense. So it's like, maybe you just have to be silent, like for some people being silent works,
Yeah.
and it buys you time and lets you think before you speak, which is probably my biggest fault. I speak my mind a little too
It's
much,
hard.
but I think this
Yeah.
is
No.
like
Easy.
one of the most important things to in a relationship.
Mhm.
Do you have any thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I think just the other thing that came to mind again with Jay Shetty's book, he talks a lot about checking your ego, right? When we talk about like the
Mm.
defensiveness and things like that, a lot of times it is our ego, right? It's like, oh
Yeah.
wait, no, you're saying I did this wrong or what? And it can be very easy to quickly go, yeah, and just go
Or
on with
think you know it all
yes,
in
yeah,
some realm. Yeah.
yeah. I think it is in relationships, it can be I think very helpful, but also hard to be willing to be like, hey, I'm just going to listen. And, and then from there can start to find out if there's another solution to the situation, right?
Mm.
Instead of it being so much right or wrong or this way or that way, right? Like room to actually come up with a better solution together.
I think we see too much black and white, like you just said, the right or wrong, when in reality there is a middle ground, I guess, that we could live in, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. There's definitely, there's a space of what's more so opinions or preferences, but also when it comes to relationships, if that's really important to one person over the other, then can you put that person, that relationship above whatever the thing is, right? Taking out the trash or the certain level of cleanliness of the house, right? Esther Perel, she's another relationship expert, and she talks a lot about those types of things too, right? Like,
Hmm.
this is really that much more important to this person, even though it's not as important to you, but because you love this person, is there room to make this a priority, to make the relationship work?
Ooh, I love that. I feel like we could spend a whole nother hour talking
I know,
about
and I'm like,
that.
oh,
I just looked at the
there's Esther
clock
Perel
and
there.
yeah, no, but I love kind of ending on that thought of it takes that sacrifice. I think like we create this happy life, right? But then it's like we have to introduce the idea of sacrifice, and we can start doing that in our lives on our own with like serving others around us. But like, I think some people, this is just my own outlook of what I've observed in the dating world, is that people aren't ready to sacrifice those things, because it's like sometimes I guess people always claim that, oh, you get too comfortable in your ways and now it's hard to change, which I think there might be a truth to it. But I don't know, that sacrifice of in a relationship, I guess the compromise, right? And just being willing to sacrifice things, and it takes a lot of, I guess, courage to try to change those things, right?
It does, yeah. It really does. And again, I think when it comes to those changes, to see, is it a good growth or is it something that you're finding that you're losing yourself in the relationship?
Ooh,
Right? I think that's where there's a little
good
bit of a
question.
line there.
Because,
But if it's like, yeah, it's uncomfortable, but it's a good growth that's really going to
mm-hmm.
your best self versus is this something that is maybe just really not being true to what your goals and vision are for your life as well. So
And I feel like if we're listening, our conscience will tell us, like you said, is it a helpful growth or is it not in a direction you're wanting to go? So just learning to listen to yourself, right? I struggle with it. It's so hard, and that's why I'm so indecisive, because it's just like, well, I don't know what my gut is telling me, like, oh,
Yay.
it is so stressful. So I need to unpack that a little bit more with my therapist, but we'll
Oh.
probably wrap up today. So if there is, from things we've talked about, or if there's something we didn't quite get to, just what is maybe like, why should others know about this, and an uplifting takeaway?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing with it is just, and something that's just really helped me the most is finding joy in the journey, right? I've learned it's a lot less for me about the destination than it is about the journey, really, and just
Mm.
finding the ways to make the different, hiccups and challenges in life to find again what's the thing to learn now, right? Or what's the way, maybe the challenge to make this more fun or enjoyable or something meaningful, right? And just really, we hear it all the time, but trusting the process too, right? Enjoying the journey and trusting the process. I feel like that is really something that's made a big difference for me.
What helps you trust the process? Like for me, that's such an idea that I like have to break down.
Yes, I know, and it is one of those that's kind of just thrown around, and it's like, what does that even mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it's the fact that you're doing everything that you can to do your best to learn and to grow, and you're curious, but you're also willing to learn in the ways that you might not expect, right? That you're going through the hard things, right? You're learning, you're challenging, you're growing,
Mm-hmm.
and that you're not necessarily so much again the all or nothing, or the expectations don't have to be this exact result, right?
Mm. I love that. And that helps, like, when you kind of get rid of an exact result, it opens up for more possibilities. Or even, like, maybe you don't need to focus on eternity right now, but just focus on the near future, like something less daunting. I
Yes,
love
exactly.
that.
Mhm.
I think for me, just like all these helpful pieces of information and golden nuggets you've shared with us, I think my uplifting takeaway today is write down that list of your go-to things, and really, like, I ask people all the time, what do you light up about, right? And some people are like, oh, I don't know what I would even talk about. And I'm like, you do deep down inside, like there is something, and like maybe it's something you wouldn't record or stuff like that, but there are those things that we're naturally gravitating toward.
Mhm.
Chase Fowers mentioned that on his podcast. We were talking about dating, and he was like, well, like in a room, like who do you naturally gravitate toward, and like pay attention to those qualities in people as you seek someone you want to be with. And I just kind of think like my coworker even asked in the car today, she's like, how do you know, like, if you're doing God's plan and God's will versus your own, right? And choosing your own path and route. And I think, like Elder Bednar always says, like, you know what, just stop worrying about it and just go and do good things and just act on those good thoughts. Do what feels natural if it's a good uplifting thing, and just go for it. Like, but also take time, sleep, cry. Like you have to have it all. It's an experience and it's hard, but I firmly believe it'll all be worth it. And like, it'll only lead to the next hard thing. Like, I'm assuming being a wife being a wife is great, but like being a wife is hard, and being a mom is even harder. And like the challenges don't stop now. So it's like so good that we have all these tools to get us in a relationship, but also tools that we can go back to when there's other life frustrations with careers and other things. So I just love that it all comes together, so.
Yeah, it can all work for all the different seasons and stages of life, right? That can be helpful to navigate.
I appreciated your time and like diving through all of this. I know we could probably just keep going, and I'm sorry for all my random tangents, but Autumn, it was a joy to have you on today's podcast, and I'll leave your Instagram, and if people have other questions, they can reach out to you. But we'll end with the quote. If you have it memorized, you put it in the form. If not, I can read it. But we'll end with the quote.
Read it, yeah.
So, create magic in every season of your beautiful life. So, create, don't wait, right? Was that the phrase?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which is true. Like, life can be magical no matter what stage you're at. So thank you again, everybody. And we'll talk to you all next week. Bye.
Thank you.